It was a clear black night with a clear white moon, in the middle of the Las Vegas Strip, right by the MGM Grand Casino. In a dark alley, a woman was screaming and running away from somebody.
Help me, please, somebody. He's going to kill me.
She cried as she ran toward the third-floor garage of the MGM, trying to hide from the killer. The man chasing her screamed in a heavy European accent.
Hey, come back, you belong with me, somebody stop this woman, she owes me money.
As he screamed, the woman's shaking hands dropped her handbag, trying to get the pepper spray out of it. The man heard the slight noise of the handbag falling down, and you could then hear the woman's scream, followed by 3 gunshots. The woman who was killed was 28-year-old Kimberly Jones, who worked for a local escort service under a man named Ian Pace. As the police arrived on the scene, Kimberly's friend Lindsay Torrey contacted Private Detective Richie Smith that night, scared that the killer would go after her next or the other girls working at Las Vegas escort services. Lindsay was also a good friend of Kimberly. They grew up together in the city of Santa Monica, California, and ended up working in Vegas after Kimberly convinced Lindsay to go where the action is, to maybe someday marry a rich and a powerful diplomat. Vegas was known to bring all kinds of people all throughout the world, including actors, performers, models, musicians, and politicians would be no exception to the rest. Detective Smith was very cautious when arriving at the murder scene. Although he knew that the police didn't like sleuths like him to get involved, he was hired by Lindsay to solve this case and was paid $1,000 a week for working this out. The money came from the owner of the escort service, or, as Richie liked to call him, Pace the Pimp. He offered Lindsay to pay Detective Smith the money, although as Lindsay reported to Richie, that Ian Pace didn't act like this incident upset him at all.
What do you mean this didn't upset Mr. Pace? He is responsible for all of you working there. How could a thing like this not even faze him one bit?
He asked Lindsay.
I don't know, Mr. Smith. Maybe Ian was in shock and people at those times can act very strange. Probably not even show any emotions until they finally break down a few days later, from being delusional of what has happened.
I will keep a close eye on your boss, Pace. This is a bit strange for me, but I suppose you may be right. Although if I was managing that business, I would probably go to see the detective myself, and I would have been a hell of pissed off if someone killed one of my girls working for me.
Said Detective Smith.
Alright, it seems like you've had a hell of a night. Your makeup is smearing all over your face. Would you like me to give you a ride home, just to make sure you are safe?
It's quite all right, Detective. I will be fine. Just promise me you will do everything in your power to find the bastard that killed my best friend.
She said in a soft voice, although she was shaking from shock of the fact that her friend was murdered. They both parted ways. Richie then took out a cigarette, lit it up, and was looking at the smoke going up into the air. As he took out the camera, he shot photographs of the dead body of Kimberly when the cops were not looking. He noticed a few things that caught his eyes. One of them was her red handbag. He recalled that when he came close to her cadaver, he smelled blood and some kind of strong perfume smell that he hadn't ever smelled before. As he zoomed in to where her handbag laid, he saw something that caught his eye. It was a Soviet-design bottle with the Soviet symbol of a hammer and sickle. He then thought, it was strange that it looked perfectly new and as if almost never used, but he could remember the strong smell of perfume when he arrived at the scene. As he went and started his car, those thoughts were rambling in his head as if a puzzle that didn't make any sense, although he knew that these things were important and may very well lead him to the killer. In his mind, the only suspect he thought could almost certainly be the killer was Pace the Pimp, who ran the escort joint due to him not wanting to make any contact with him, and used Lindsay to hire him on the case as if he really was trying to find the killer. But in reality, he would do anything to mislead and pay anything to get himself off the hook. But then again, what would it benefit him that a girl who has worked 9 years for him would be murdered? Things just didn't add up. As he was driving past Caesar Palace Casino, he heard his phone ringing. He picked up on his Bluetooth. It was his old buddy Ian Gillan on the phone, to whom he sent a text message earlier with the photo attached to see his opinion what he thought might have happened. Richie had a lot of respect for former Detective Gillen. To most, he wouldn't ever trust any of this information to. But to Gillen, he felt as though he was his brother, even though they only saw each other about once every 6 months. And when they did, they both got piss drunk. Still, Richie respected Gillen's opinion.
Hey Richie, I got your message, hope I'm not bothering you, but from the looks of it, I suggest you go see her boss Mr. Pace, and have a talk with him one-on-one.
Gillen stated.
Hey Ian, I was thinking the same thing, and that's exactly where I'm going to go have a small chat with Mr. Pace.
Richie, just to be safe, I suggest you carry the magnum I gave you on your 33rd birthday, because you don't know what to expect from scumbag pimps like Pace. For all we know, he could be our guy. Take care, Richie, and if you need any help or backup, feel free to send me a text. I just rented a studio a few blocks from the Flamingo Hotel, so I could be there in no time. Good luck.
As Gillen hung up, Richie finished parking his car at Pace's escort service, which was located 1 block away from Stratosphere Hotel and Casino. As he walked up to the door, a pretty young lady opened it and said,
"You must be Detective Smith. You are more handsome than I've imagined. I've heard a lot about you. Maybe after my shift tonight, we could..."
Richie interrupted.
Don't even bother to ask, miss. I am very busy man, and I hardly have free time to have fun in the Sin City as it may seem strange. However, here's my card. You give me a call if you have any leads to what happened to your associate Kimberly. Also, I am free at about 4:30 a.m., which is when I like to take some shots of bourbon. So if you want to come down to my pad then, and have a few drinks, feel free. But any other time I'm busy.
The girl looked at him as if he was a bit strange and somewhat even more attractive at the same time, with him rejecting her, but not fully saying no to her idea of having some fun.
"Come follow me, Mr. Smith. Mr. Pace should be with you any minute. Why don't you have a seat here in the lobby? And I'll let him know you are waiting for him."
Thank you.
Richie said as he took out his flask and lit up another cigarette. He waited about 30 minutes, and then a short, chubby guy resembling the actor Danny DeVito walks out. The first thing Richie noticed was some white powder under his nose, which he right away figured out what it was. It didn't surprise him one bit that this guy was a drug addict with him owning a supposed legal escort business. But everyone in Vegas or outside of Vegas all knew exactly what went on behind closed curtains.
Some whiskey, Mr. Smith.
Pace asked with his left lower hand trembling.
No, I'm fine. I got my own flask here with good old Jack Daniels. You can't go wrong with that.
Richie replied while having an analytical look on his face.
Shall we start, Mr. Pace?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Smith, ask Roy.
Pace replied,
Well, I saw Lindsay earlier today and she was devastated at what has happened to Kimberly. My first question is, why did you have to send her to hire me and not do it yourself?
Well, Mr. Smith, as you may know, Las Vegas is a very busy city, and I have a job to do 24 hours a day, because my girls are on call anytime during day or night.
Lindsay earlier told me that you sometimes scream at her, and you screamed at Kimberly the last few weeks. She even told me that you hit Kimberly and caused her a black eye. Is that true? And if it is true, if you harm Lindsay in any way from our conversation tonight, I will personally come down here with my magnum and fuck you up. Do you understand me?
I perfectly understand, but you have to also understand that this is a very stressful business and I am not saying that I am perfect, but we have a lot of high-end clients from all over the world. Kimberly wanted to take a few weeks off to go visit her mother down in Santa Monica. When I told her no, she screamed at me, and out of lack of control, I did slap her a few times across the face. But I was certainly not intending to hurt her. She was my best girl, and that is why I decided to hire you to figure out what has happened and who killed Kimberly.
I suppose you're right, Mr. Pace. Do you by any chance have the information of the last person to escort Kimberly?
Richie asked in a very cautious manner, still thinking in his head that this guy may be the killer.
I don't have the name. The clients here sometimes like to remain anonymous, but each credit card leads back to European bank accounts. That's all I can tell you. I can even give you each card information, but you have to promise me that the police won't find out that I'm giving out the information I'm not supposed to, or else I have huge problems with the state of Nevada.
Just then, it hit Detective Smith that the perfume with a Soviet sign on it, this must have had something to do with the murder. although Richie was hesitant about completely disregarding Pace to be the killer, because he could have had many motifs to do it, just alone the fact that he was a cokehead and didn't know how to control himself from what he said earlier.
I will look into this. Thank you for your time, Mr. Pace. I will see you soon and let you know what I find. Just so you know, you are one of the suspects that the police reported, so you may be hearing from them as well. And I am working on this case not for you but for Lindsay, just so we get this straight.
I hope you find the son of a bitch, Mr. Smith. I would love to break his fucking head wide open for killing my best girl.
I will see you later, Mr. Pace. Take care.
Richie replied, still wondering if either this guy was a great actor or if he really did mean what he said.